Yeah, I think though the major thing with me is I love Matthew Nyes not when he's scoring, that's great, but it's when he feels like he is adding to the Matthews Marner, oh my God, you're terrified when this guy's on your hip. You know, like he has that relentless pursuit and he will hit you. And he's a big guy. So even though some of the hits aren't necessarily the most violent looking, I think that he put some pretty serious pressure on the other team's blue line, especially the way that the Leafs play, right? Which is like, hey, we dump it in, we forecheck. That's the style of play that we are going to utilize throughout the course of the season. That Nyes' import is actually maybe even a little bit higher than we speak about him sometimes, just because he is only 22 years old. And he needs to hit. He needs to be uber physical, and he needs to feel like he's got his legs underneath him. And last year, I remember texting a couple of people that, like, hey, what are you seeing with him versus what he was doing at college? And they were like, yeah, it's fine. It's not a really big deal. But it did feel like he hit a bit of a rookie wall. And that was at 13 minutes a game. Oh, sorry, almost 14. So it was the 13:41. But yeah, this year he's at 18:17. Like,
Yeah,
that's a
it's a
big
lot
uptick.
different.
That's a big uptick
Yeah.
in minutes, man. And so I do wonder if the coaching staff, like now he's being bumped down to the third line, right? Like he's getting a bit of a different look. I wonder if they try to mitigate those minutes a little bit so that there's not so much on his plate so that he does hit the stretch run a little bit more fresh. They're going to have the February break. But yeah, there's been a lot of games that have been condensed with this schedule so far. But yeah, just because he's young and fit and looks like, he's been sculpted out of marble, he's a human being, and I think that maybe it's a little bit too much too soon from a minute standpoint if you're starting to see this continue throughout January.
Yeah, the combination of not playing with Matthews
Yeah.
and having a lesser center most of the time.
Yeah. Oh, all the time.
and being a bit banged up,
Yep.
and just the grind of how many games there are and his age. I mean, that's all what you're seeing there.
Yeah.
So for him, yeah, I think you want to take a little bit of pressure off him. And he's been on the number one power play unit too with Matthews out. So like there's even
Kills
more
penalties.
minutes there. And he's been I guess third unit penalty kill, I guess.
Mhm.
But like, yeah, no, it adds up. And it's a lot of pressure on him. And then you don't want him to fall into kind of like where he's questioning himself more and having confidence issues.
Yep. I'm totally with you on that one. And by the way, just to kind of close this out, I'm hopeful that the Berube Uber accountability thing ends up coming into effect next season. Again, this is just my theories, much like the Matthews thing, that, hey, he's year one. He's been a player's coach. Like, players love him. But that he is sort of just dipping his toe with his team and this culture. And talking to Rick Bowness, it gave me a little bit of perspective on that, where he was talking about with Winnipeg, he felt like it wasn't until year two when his Jets team really started to get the system down and really be fully bought into what he was preaching and see the results of it and go on down the line. That, hey, this is a bit of if you're a coach of a team like this and you're him, you're trying to play this a little bit more long game. And so year one, you're letting Nylander be out there on power play 2 for 4-minute shifts, right? Without
Not anymore.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, without pasting him publicly about it, right? And he hasn't had, I don't think he's had one quote this year where I've been like, ooh, that's a toughie, like, ooh, that's a bad one. He's just let these guys, like Matthews comes back and they're like, Marner, go back with him. It's fine. Best buds, Nylander, play on the power play as much as you want. Come off. Hey, whenever you feel like it, buddy, that's when you come over here. Like, the accountability stuff hasn't exactly been what we were promised, let's say, based on the bluster of the podium speak. But I would guess that, again, it's just a guess. My guess is that this year will be treated very differently than next year once he's been here a little bit longer and he feels like he has more of the trust of the players, that he's still in like the earning it phase and doesn't want to like sewer guys or do things publicly or hold them to task with benchings and things like that in year one. Does that make sense to you?
He doesn't have a Tortorella style. Like,
no.
So, no, yeah, he's got to build up a little bit of currency with your best players.
Yep.
And, then if you need the hammer at some point when you really need it, then you can take it out. But,
right.
Yeah.
Like,
I think he's handled it well. Like, it's not, I remember, like, I covered the team when Ron Wilson was here, and it's just sometimes he would just like destroy a guy. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're just burning bridges, like, and then when the team quits on you and everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense. So.
Ron Wilson, always forever a legend, though, for proving Jason Spezza was a cheater, though, with his stick, which is pretty great. Like, and especially now that Jason Spezza is, tried for war crimes in the city and all good deeds that he has had have been undone. That's a great memory back again. It was like that was a hidden memory, and now it's fully back now that he's in Pittsburgh with Dubas. Last thing. I was just thinking about this and whatever, little musings. And I very much don't like to criticize publicly the players on the junior team at this point. I just don't think it's fair. Like, criticize them as a group. I think it's bad, but I don't do a lot of singling out. But yeah, certain players haven't had the best tournaments, I would say, so far. And I was thinking a little bit about like how this deadline and the import of it. And let's just put it this way. Do you think that anybody in the prospect system is untouchable?
That's a great question. I don't think they should be.
Because it sure felt last year like one guy in particular was untouchable. And I was thinking, like, is he for sure now?
Yeah, because of the World Juniors, eh? It's interesting,
No, I certainly wouldn't say that. But
it
was
sounds
I
like
mad?
that was what the intro you had scripted out certainly pointed. It's interesting, with the way those games have gone. I've gotten people in my texts and DMs from other markets, and they're watching Easton Cowan up close, and they're like, what exactly is this guy?
Yeah, I didn't name names, but I would say that I've had some thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I think that the Toronto hype train with him has gotten a little bit out of control. So, and they're kids, right? And it's
they're just kids.
Their most high stakes tournament he's ever played in, and you see some warts, and
sure do.
I don't think that should mean that all of a sudden you're thinking of trading him. What I will say is it's been pretty
isn't
clear.
About that. I want to make this clear, though. I'm not trying to advocate that, like, you see a bad World Juniors and all of a sudden I'm like, you should trade him. That's idiotic. Like, it's the stupidest take that you could possibly have. My thought was just simply like, okay, when you watch, like, if you see somebody, you're like, if the Leafs would have had Matthew Schaefer, you're like, that's an untouchable. Like, that's you never move off of that guy no matter what. You see what Gavin McKenna is so far, and you're like, yeah, clearly that is going to be an untouchable. And I haven't felt like watching Easton Cowan that I'm like, that's an untouchable. Like you're in a competitive cycle. You could absolutely, under no circumstances, trade that player. That's all. I had that thought of being like, okay, like, would you move him? Like, there's got to be a price point that you kind of would in this cycle. That's all. Whereas before it was like you can't move it based on last season. Like you could not touch him. There's
been some talk they're looking at potentially adding players that have term. So if there's a trade, like for a rental you don't trade.
Of course not.
And Cowan, and like that doesn't make any sense. And there's been a reluctance in the organization to trade first round picks and trade high end prospects for rentals. So,
which is smart.
If there's some super trade out there where you're getting a player with term who's going to make a really big impact, you're going to have to put something into the trade to make it happen. You're going to have to put something of value. And unfortunately for the Leafs, they don't have a lot of assets to trade. They just, there's not a lot of, they have hardly any picks in the upcoming draft. They have hardly any marquee prospects. So if they're going to swing big and do something, which I don't think is the worst plan, given the window and where they're at right now, then the only thing is that the Matthews thing hangs over all of this, right? Like, is this the trade deadline you want to get aggressive at with where Matthews is at?
Well, it is if you put him on LTIR and you load up. Like, I'll tell you that much. It is if you do the JD strategy. Like, this could be a little bit of a different story. No, I'm with you. I get it. And like I said, I'm not making. I certainly, and I mean this sincerely, like, I don't like the idea of making one kid some big negative story from a World Junior tournament, and that's really not what I'm trying to do. It's just simply that when I'm watching him play, and this is the only real look I get at him because I'm not watching London Knights games on the regular. But yeah, I want to see what a guy looks like on this stage, especially when they're in this year, right? Where it's like, hey, this is your year. He's supposed to be one of the guys on the team. And yeah, you want to know, like, hey, what is somebody to you? And where is this team at? And for me, some of the thinking has been, I've been pretty reluctant even at the idea of trading Fraser Minton. And I've made my case for this before, being like, I just think that what he represents of a controllable young center who is not going to be a superstar, but is going to be on that contract with the team that's looking to do the things Toronto is, like, it just carries a lot of value. So you're not moving him for a rental. You're not doing Easton Cowan for a rental. But yeah, I think that with both those guys, where the Leafs are at, you get the right type of trade. And I'm just not hanging up the phone if teams call about them, if I'm Tree Living. That's all.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, it makes sense with the window that they're in, their contention
Yeah.
window. Like I don't know that Easton Cowan's going to be really moving the needle for the Leafs
For a
probably in the
couple of
next
years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Anyway, all right, Myrtle. Thanks as always for making time.
Leafs all in on center hunt. Treliving's bold moves could shape Toronto's future. As a die-hard Toronto Maple Leaf supporter, it's hard not to get excited about the latest trade buzz surrounding the team. Brad Treliving, the Leafs general manager, appears poised to make some daring moves to strengthen the squad's depth down the middle. The whispers of significant trades are growing louder, and Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet has added fuel to the fire with his recent revelations. The situation has become even more pressing as the Leafs grapple with the ongoing upper body injury to team captain Auston Matthews. Matthews has already missed the last 4 games, and while the team is doing its best to stay afloat, the need for reinforcements at center is undeniable. Treliving, it seems, is ready to part with valuable assets to address this glaring need. The centers on Treliving's radar. Names like Jake Evans from the Montreal Canadiens, Brock Nelson from the New York Islanders, and the Philadelphia Flyers' Morgan Frost have been mentioned as potential targets. These players bring a mix of experience and skill, each offering something unique to the Leafs lineup. But, as Friedman highlighted during his appearance on the Fan 590's The Fan Hockey Show, the price tags for these players vary significantly. That's the number one thing he's, Treliving, been looking at all season, Friedman noted, emphasizing the GM's focus on finding the right fit at center. This isn't just about plugging a hole, it's about finding a player who can elevate the team to new heights. Priorities in focus. While some fans might argue that the Leafs need help on defense, Friedman suggested that Treliving's primary focus is elsewhere. They did a lot of their work in the off-season. I think now there's a question if they need to go find someone to play with Morgan Rielly, he explained. But, it's not their number one priority. I believe their number one thing all season has been, let's find another center. This clear focus on center depth speaks volumes about Treliving's strategy. The Leafs are willing to pay a hefty price, but there's a caveat: the player must come with term. Why term matters? The preference for term isn't just a strategic move, it's a sign that Treliving is thinking long-term. Rentals can be tempting, especially for a team looking to make a deep playoff run, but they often come with risks. One of the things I've heard is that if they're going to spend assets on a center, they would prefer it to be someone with term, Friedman revealed. This approach ensures that any trade made benefits the Leafs beyond the immediate future. Internal struggles and potential fits. Internally, the Leafs have tried to find solutions. Fraser Minton showed promise earlier this season, but the organization prefers to let him develop further with the Marlies. Meanwhile, the Leafs' current lineup has struggled to maintain its depth in Matthews' absence. One intriguing option could be Vincent Trocheck from the New York Rangers. With the Rangers facing their own challenges, could they be persuaded to part with a player like Trocheck, who already has chemistry with Leaf stars from last year's All-Star game? The road ahead. As the calendar flips to 2025, the trade deadline looms larger. Treliving's actions in the coming months will undoubtedly shape the Leafs' playoff aspirations and potentially their long-term future. For Leafs fans, the anticipation is palpable. Every move, every rumor, and every game feels like a piece of the puzzle. Treliving's willingness to swing for the fences shows a commitment to bringing a championship to Toronto, a dream that has eluded the franchise for far too long. Why this matters? This isn't just another season. This is a chance for the Leafs to solidify their identity as a contender. With Matthews expected to return and the possibility of a major trade to bolster the lineup, the team is poised to make a statement. Treliving's boldness, combined with the team's potential, makes it an exhilarating time to be a Leafs fan. Whether it's Evans, Nelson, Frost, or another unexpected addition, one thing is clear: the Leafs are in it to win it. So, buckle up, Leafs Nation. The journey ahead promises to be as thrilling as it is unpredictable. Treliving's moves could define the legacy of this team, and, hopefully, end the championship drought that has haunted Toronto for decades. The weight of expectations. The Leafs are no strangers to the pressure of the spotlight. Toronto is a hockey city, and the Maple Leafs are its beating heart. Every move made by management is scrutinized, every decision debated endlessly by fans and analysts alike. Treliving stepped into a challenging role when he took over as GM, and his willingness to take bold steps shows he understands the weight of these expectations. What makes this moment particularly critical is the team's current window of contention. With stars like Auston Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander in their prime, the Leafs are in win-now mode. The front office knows that wasting even a single season could have long-term repercussions. Auston Matthews, the catalyst. Matthews' injury has highlighted just how crucial he is to the team's success. While his absence has been manageable in short bursts, it's clear that the Leafs' center depth isn't built to withstand prolonged stretches without their captain. This has amplified the urgency to bring in another center who can contribute immediately and lessen the load on Matthews when he returns. The captain's recovery timeline is still uncertain, but Treliving's proactive approach suggests the team isn't willing to gamble on waiting too long. The goal is clear: solidify the lineup so that when Matthews is back, the Leafs are firing on all cylinders. The cost of boldness. The term significant assets isn't used lightly. Whether it's high draft picks, promising prospects, or even current roster players, Treliving is signaling that no stone will be left unturned. The Leafs' prospect pool is respectable but not overflowing, meaning any trade will have to be meticulously calculated. There's also the financial aspect. The Leafs are a team that operates near the salary cap, so any addition will require shrewd cap management. Could Treliving pull off a move that strengthens the roster without hamstringing the team's flexibility? If he does, it would be nothing short of a masterstroke. The fan base's role. Leafs Nation, passionate as ever, has already begun dissecting potential trade scenarios. Social media is abuzz with debates about who should be targeted and what assets should be sacrificed. Fans understand the stakes, and there's a growing sense of anticipation, bordering on impatience, for Treliving to make his move. It's a delicate balance for the GM. While fans demand immediate results, he must ensure that any deal aligns with a long-term vision of sustained success. The pressure to deliver is immense, but so is the potential reward. Comparisons to past GMs. Treliving's approach invites comparisons to his predecessors. Some GMs were criticized for being too conservative, while others were seen as overly aggressive. Treliving, however, seems to have struck a balance. He's willing to take risks, but only if they make sense for the team's broader goals. This calculated boldness is exactly what the Leafs need in this pivotal moment. If Treliving can pull off a game-changing trade, he could cement his place as one of the most effective GMs in recent Leafs history. The trade deadline looms. The NHL trade deadline is one of the most exciting times of the year, and this season promises to be no exception. With the Leafs actively shopping for a center, every rumor and report will be magnified. Other teams are watching closely, too, as any move by Toronto could shift the balance of power in the league. It's not just about who the Leafs acquire, it's about what message the move sends. A major trade would signal to the league, and to their own players, that Toronto is all in. That kind of confidence can be infectious, sparking a surge of momentum heading into the playoffs. Lessons from the past. Leafs fans have seen their fair share of trade deadline moves over the years, some more successful than others. From acquiring veterans to bolster playoff runs to making unexpected gambles, the franchise's history offers lessons for Treliving. The key will be avoiding the pitfalls of overpaying for short-term fixes while maximizing the impact of any new additions. The future of Fraser Minten. One of the most intriguing subplots is the development of Fraser Minten. The young center has shown flashes of brilliance but remains a work in progress.